Hello everyone and welcome back to another virtual farm tour here at Chatsworth Farm. Happy Sunday, and whether you're at the lake or just at home relaxing, we have another great tour planned for you today. We have lots of new, especially poultry, new babies. So we're going to go start in our what was our calving barn, and right now is our kind of chick and turkey and duckling barn. I just picked up some weeds for them, so I'll give that to the chicks and the ducklings and the turkeys. We also have Lizzy here with me today. She's looking a little bit shaggy. I have to brush her. Sort of the second amount of her winter coat is starting to kind of stick through, so I have to give her another good brush. So she's going to come and join me. So this is the alley that we just walked down, and over here we usually start from the other side of the barn. We usually walk from the south going north, and this time we're walking from the north going south. So this is what the barn looks like on the outside. So we have the windows in it so we can give them lots of natural light. You don't want the building where little turkeys and ducks and geese are to be overly bright. You don't want to have a lot of artificial light, so there are no lights on in here other than just their heat lamps, which for the most part are red bulbs. But I will turn the lights on in here because it is a little dark, so then we can see a bit better. And Lizzy will come on in because she quite likes the temperature in here. It's nice and cool. So we'll switch this around. We'll turn on the lights. There we go. So it's a bit brighter in here so we can see. So right in here we have our turkey poults. So we got these at the beginning of the month. We also have some of the broiler chicks in here just to give everybody a bit more space. So these are white Nicholas turkeys. That's the breed that these are. And then the chicks are Cornish giants. So those are our meat bird chicks, and these are also our meat bird turkeys. So I'll give them just some weeds. We give them nice small weeds, so it's easier for them to eat. And they got some earlier today, so they might not be overly hungry. But they have the heat lamps to give them that extra heat, which they all need. If they had a mother turkey, which a mother hen, or if they had a chicken as a mother, that mother would provide them with that heat, so they'd all huddle under her feathers and she'd be able to keep them warm. But because they don't have that, you have to be able to give them an additional source of warmth. So we use heat lamps. So this is our first pen over here. We kind of are ever increasing the number that we are getting in here. And over in here are our chicks that just hatched today and yesterday. So these are some of our purebred chicks that I ordered in the mail. So we have some mosaic chicks, so they are the little yellow and black stripy ones. Then we have some black ones in here that are olive eggers. The little mauve colored ones are the lavender Orpington chicks. Then we have some chocolate Orpington, so they're the chocolate colored ones. We also have some ducklings in here. And then I just moved my Ridley bronze turkeys in here, so the sort of bigger dark brown stripy ones. I moved them in here just because they don't grow as quickly as the other chicks and the broiler chicks, so I wanted to keep everybody roughly the same size. So that's why they are in here right now. So all these babies were hatched either this morning or yesterday, and we still have a few more in the incubator, so I'm hoping that they'll all hatch. So these are the youngest and the smallest. And over in this pen, we just have a mix of some more of those broiler chicks, so just giving them that extra space, and then a few of the layer chicks that I have. So I have 4 of them in here right now, or 5 of them. There's one hiding in the corner. And I'll give them a bit of the weeds as well. I have to go pick some more because they're not quite enough for all the other broiler chicks, but it'll give them a good start. This is the feed that they get, so it's the same feed that all of our poultry get across the board. So it's a mix of peas, wheat, and flax, and it's ground fairly fine. We grow it and we grind it ourselves. So we just give this to the chicks, and as they get older, their feeder sizes will start to increase. So right in here we have all of our broiler chicks. So these are the Cornish Giants, our meat birds. And you can see just how big they are. And we'll do a little bit of a comparison in the other pen, just so you can see the size difference in terms of the meat birds to the layer chicks. So we have the heat lamps in here for them. They have their feeders, their waters, and as they get a bit bigger, probably in a week, we'll start to increase the size of both the waters and the grain feeders. So we just have straw as their bedding on the bottom here. And we do leave some dirt exposed because they're chickens and they really like to scratch and peck around in the dirt. So we don't cover up the ground completely. It just gives them something to do. So you can see that's what those chicks are doing over here. They're pecking at the dirt because there's always some additional seeds from the straw. And then the grain will kind of sprinkle it in the corner. It just gives them a little bit more activity, especially for broilers that grow so quickly. It's good to get them to move around so they're not sitting down as much. And that's why we kind of have all the feeders and the waters placed across from one another, just so they can get that exercise that they need. So we'll go in here and we'll check on we'll just look at the size difference. So we got these broiler chicks on Tuesday, so they were hatched on Monday. So I'm going to grab one of them if I can. So it's really hard to sort of see the physical size of them, but you can see they're quite large. They're almost as big as my hand, and they're quite hefty. So these are the broiler chicks, so the Cornish Giants. And then in here we also have my little layer chicks, and they were hatched on, I have so many hatches going on that it's sometimes hard to remember when. So I have a couple layer chicks in here, and they are quite fast. So I kind of have to corner them. And it's always trickier with one hand. There we go. So this is one of the layer chicks, and you can see their feather development is quite a bit further along, so their wings are almost fully feathered. And these chicks are about the same size, and they were hatched, I can't remember the exact date, but they were hatched at least a week and a half ago. Probably even 2 weeks now. I'll double check the date. But they're a good week older than these broiler chicks, and the broiler chicks are the exact same size pretty much, and some of them might be even heavier. But you can just see the difference in their growth in terms of their wings. So you can see that this chick has pretty much all its feathers on its wings. So right now it'll just continue to grow, but all the feathers are pretty much showing. And so these are the layers. So this chick, whether it's a male or a female, and I can't really tell right now because chickens are quite hard to sex at the beginning. Some of them you're able to. They'll have little markings, whether it's a little bit of white on their head, and that's always breed dependent. You're able to sex them, but the breeds that I have, you just have to wait until they're old enough, and then you know. So these are also crossbred, so it's also a bit tricky to tell as well, since you have a mix of breeds. But these are the chicks that will grow into be layers, and so they'll be the ones that we get eggs from. And we have Lizzy in here just checking out the chickens. She's always quite interested in all the new animals that are around, all the babies. So she gives them a good look. She doesn't really have to protect anything in here because they are inside the barns, but she'll patrol around the outside and make sure everybody's okay. Right, Liz? Good girl. And we feed these chicks and the turkeys and the ducklings every morning, and we come in here throughout the day periodically and check on them, make sure everybody's doing well. Because the chicks don't make too much of a mess in their water, we can give them water first thing in the morning, and we'll maybe just clean it out in the evening, but they're pretty good at keeping it clean, and so are the turkeys. You get into a little bit more work with keeping the waters clean when you have ducklings, because the way ducks like to feed is they go eat, and then they kind of put their food in that water, and it makes it easier for them to eat. So they make a bit of a mess around the water. So that's everything in here for the chicks. As always, if you have any questions about the turkeys or the chickens, leave them in the comments below, and I will get to those either during the live video or afterwards. So now we're going to hop on out of the barn. Come on, Lizzy. Come on. Come on, you go out. Turn off the lights since they don't need it. Come on, Liz. Come on. There we go. And now we're going to go give Rosie some chives from the garden. She quite likes those. Every time that we walk up to the garden and she follows us, she always kind of nibbles on those. So have that for her as a bit of a treat. We aren't bottle feeding her anymore. We reached the end of our milk powder, and so that was kind of a natural stopping point for us to wean her off milk replacer, since really sheep need only about 2 months, and so we got her end of April, I think it was. So she's had lots of time to transition from just drinking milk to adding some forage into her diet. She's not really happy about it, but she'll learn to manage. So we keep hay in with her at night so she can have something to eat on. And then we have a pen that she's in here right now. She doesn't love it. She actually prefers the chicken house to the pen that she's in right now, but it gives her the opportunity to eat grass. And she's in here. Come here, Rosie. So we'll give her a few of the chives. She really enjoys them, especially the nice newer ones. And she's grown quite a bit too in the last couple of weeks. She's really starting to fill out. Last one. So she's going to follow us for the rest of the tour. It can be a little bit tricky going into the calving barn with the chicks when she's with us, so that's why I wanted to leave her until the end, or until we were done with the chicks anyway. We have our kittens, and I almost forgot, we have some other brand new kittens that we haven't shown before. I think I've taken a few pictures and posted them, but haven't showed them on a tour yet. So we will let the hens out. So we always let them out at around noon, but on tour days I let them out a little bit later so we can get a little bit of an idea of how we let the hens out. So let them out at noon, and then they're able to go outside wherever they want to around the yard. And then they put themselves back in at nighttime. So they put themselves in at around 6 o'clock. They kind of go to bed early. And they always stay fairly close to where the hen houses are. They know it's safe and they won't explore too far, but they'll go into the cattle pens and they'll spend some time in with the cattle, and that's a perfectly safe space for them to be in. We have the ducks in there too. So now that we have the hens out, we can go in here, and in here it'll be a little dark as well, but I can take the kittens out. So just the other day, our other mother cat, the one that was pregnant, she also had her babies. So this is Chloe, and Chloe had 6 kittens. So we have some very fun colored kittens, and they have already grown a lot since they were born. So we have an orange one, we have 2 kind of pink colored ones. There's the orange one. And we have a little, this one kind of looks like Chloe a little bit. It's got that gray and the pink. There's the pink one. There's a little tabby one. Oh. So they're very tiny, but they have grown a lot since being born. So Chloe will spend quite a bit of time in here with the kittens, feeding them. And again, just like the other cat, she chose to have her babies inside one of the chicken houses, or where the poultry are. So these are just the nest boxes with the hens. So you can see the chickens are in one, and they're just down at the end. And then we have the cat. So we're going to leave them alone for a bit. So I have one question. When a duck sits on 4 or 5 eggs, does that mean she lays an egg for 4 or 5 days? And do they hatch daily then too? So the way chickens or ducks or geese will start their laying process is they will decide that they're going to lay some eggs. So if they want 10 eggs in their clutch, they're going to lay 1 egg a day for 10 days. And then on that 10th day, or possibly day 11, then they will start to incubate those eggs. So they won't be sitting on those that clutch of eggs until they've kind of reached that optimal number. And I don't think there's any exact reason that tells a bird how many eggs that they want to hatch. I think it's just something instinctive or just something environmental. So if things aren't looking great in terms of the availability of food, they'll lay fewer eggs, so they have fewer mouths to feed. And if there's an abundance of food, then they will probably lay more eggs because they're able to easily feed lots of babies. So there are a lot of factors that play into how many eggs will be in a clutch, but they won't start setting or incubating those eggs until they've kind of reached that optimal number, and then they'll start setting. For geese, it takes 35 days from day 1 of incubation to hatch day. Chickens, 21, and ducks and turkeys, 28. Some duck breeds will take a little bit longer, the bigger ones, and then some will take a few less. But it's usually 21 days and then up. But then if you're getting into anything smaller, like quails, they'll be a bit fewer. I think they're around 16 to 18 days. I've never hatched quail eggs before, so I'm not certain on what that incubation time is. But we have the geese out here, and you might be able to see that really sort of funny looking goose. That's the gosling. So that is the one baby that we have right now. We did have some females hatch out goslings earlier this year, but they all found new homes. So we just have one gosling left right now, and you can see just how big it is. It's not really at that very cute stage anymore. It's kind of at that awkward teenager stage. But you can see just how quickly they grow when they're able to kind of free range and forage around. And this gosling has lots of protection. So all the geese are surrounding it right now, but normally it'll have 3 adults that'll be watching the gosling as they move around the yard. Most of the time, the rest of the geese will be off by themselves, and then the 3 will be together with the gosling. But right now, everybody's together. So the gosling has excellent protection and never have to worry about anything happening with that baby. So we've kind of moved our some birds around this morning just to give everybody a bit more space as we're starting to see everyone get older. So we have our chicks in here that were hatched last month. So we have some purebred lavender Orpingtons, a mix of some Marans, some mosaics, a little bit of everything. And then we have our oldest chicks here at the back, as well as the ducklings. So this is one of the little chicken tractors that we use, or this is the big chicken tractor that we use. And I've taken the hen out of here just because she doesn't need to be in here anymore. The chicks are old enough to live in here without her. And also the introduction of the ducklings and the older chicks wouldn't be a great thing to have when the hen is in here because she sees them as a threat to her own babies, so she wouldn't be very welcoming to them. So we just removed the hen and the chicks are in here just by themselves. And they all have enough feathers and they kind of get acclimatized to being outside, so they'll do well out here. So you can see that one yellow duckling, that's the only yellow duckling I have. It is a Rouen Pekin cross. So all of the ducklings that I have are that cross, but some of them will show different traits or they'll be a little bit different in their coloring. So that's the yellow one. The one that's right next to it is a bit darker. And then the other 2 kind of represent that typical Rouen coloring where they're brown with yellow around their face. So all the younger chicks are over here in the corner. They're still getting used to their new pen mates. They're still not quite sure what to think of these older ones, but once they get used to them, they'll integrate a little bit better. They'll kind of mingle more. And we move this chicken tractor around every morning so they can access the fresh dirt and weeds. And because the ducks are in here, we'll change their water more often because, as I mentioned before, the ducks like to make a bit of a mess of their water. Their feeding habits are quite different from that of chickens. So they like to feed and then put that food in the water. It helps them digest it a little bit better. So their water can get quite mucky. And that's great for ducks, but sometimes the chickens don't appreciate that so much, so we'll change it more often than we would if it was just chickens. So those are the chicks. And this chicken tractor is empty for the time being. So waiting for another broody hen to hatch out her chicks and she can go in here. And then this one we have the hen that had most recently had hatched out her chicks. So they are in here. So they're still quite tiny and they still need the mother hen to provide them with warmth. And these chicks are mixed breeds as well. So we have some chicks that have some chocolate Orpington genetics in them. So they're the little brown ones. And then the rest are kind of a mixed bag. It's difficult to tell what crosses they are. So this is that same feed that they got, or that the chicks in the calving barn are getting. So that mix of peas, wheat, and flax. And the chickens do very well on it. And you can see where we've been moving this chicken tractor from. So all that lighter grass is grass that the hen has scratched up. And we move the chicken tractor to a new spot every day. And then eventually, as the grass starts to grow back, we'll move it back to some of the original spots so it can just keep that regrowth going. And Rosie's out there. Come on, Rosie. Come on. Oh, she's off to the house. Come on, Rosie. If we walk away, she'll follow us. Come on, Rosie. Come on. Come on. She doesn't like to be left behind. Come on, Rosie. So we do have a bit of a breezy day today, so I hope the sound is pretty good for everybody. My brother Alexander just sheared our remaining sheep this week. So he did the ram. We had one ewe who wasn't bred, so he sheared her as well. And then we have our 2 wethers. So Alexander finished shearing them. We did the ewes back in May, so before they lambed. It's really important that we shear them before they start lambing. It gives the lambs better access to the udders, so they're able to nurse a little bit easier. And then in case we need to help the ewes with pulling any of the lambs, it just makes everything a lot cleaner and just less wool in the way. We took a little bit longer with the rams and the wethers and that one ewe, just because they weren't as vital to get done. They were able to wait a little bit longer, so my brothers were able to finish seeding, and once they had a bit more downtime, they were able to get the remaining 4 sheared. So they are over here, and they're in with the horse, so we've moved them around a little bit just because the ram can be quite tricky to move and catch, but if we have the horse around, then we just lead her wherever we need to take him, and he'll follow her. So they're over in here, and the ram and horse stick together, but the 2 wethers who are in the back of this pen somewhere, they don't really like the horse that much. They're not quite sure of her, so they kind of stay away. So here's the ram. He probably looks quite different from any other past videos where he was quite large. He's still quite a big ram, but just a little bit smaller now because the wool is gone. So he's a Suffolk ram. He's a purebred Suffolk sheep. And Suffolk are one of the largest breeds of sheep. So you can see just how big he is. And good reference is the horse, because everyone kind of has a good idea of how big a horse is. So if he's close by, you can see just how large he is. This is my mare. She is a registered American quarter horse. Her registered name is JXL, Mia Goodbar. And I haven't done any riding lately. We did go off and check the cattle that are pastured just nearby. So we checked on the cattle and then went and rode and got the mail. So we get rural mail, so went off and did that. There you go. You can kind of see just how big the ram is in comparison to the horse. So this front piece of hair on a horse is called their forelock. And then this is her halter that she's wearing. So if you're going riding and you have your halter that has a bit in it, that's called a bridle. So that's what we use when we go riding. But the one that she has just on right now is called a halter. And we have to get her feet done fairly soon, so I get her hooves done professionally. So I get a farrier out and he'll trim her hooves. So about every 4 weeks to a month. Of course, this year, especially in the last couple of months, haven't been able to do that. So her hooves have gone a little bit longer. But as long as she's given some ground that's a little bit rockier or rough, that'll help wear her hooves down naturally. And the sheep also get that kind of treatment as well. They only get their hooves trimmed once a year since they don't grow as quickly. And they spend a lot of time on rocks and rougher surfaces, so their hooves wear down a bit more and a little bit easier than the horses does. And so they get their hooves trimmed when they're being sheared. So Alexander would have done that then. There you go. You can see a really good size comparison from the horse and the ram. You can also kind of see the ram's teeth. So he has teeth on the bottom. So sheep and cattle only have front teeth on their bottom. And then with horses, she has front teeth both top and bottom. So they forage a little bit differently, and it's going to be tricky to try and get her to show her teeth. We have our wethers over here. So wethers are castrated male sheep. So they're about the same size as the ewes. They weigh around 130 pounds. And they are a Suffolk cross. So our only purebred sheep is the ram, so he's the purebred, and then all the rest are classified as commercial or crossbred. And we have the sheep in this pen with our rock pile, so every time we're out in our fields or we're checking on things, we want to try and clean up any rocks that are maybe sticking out or obvious in any of our cultivated fields, because as we're going through with harvest or just driving through with machinery, rocks can cause really large damages, whether that's on the header of your combine or on the teeth of your cutters, your hay cutters. So we want to try and prevent any damage to machinery when possible. So that means collecting rocks, and we just throw these rocks in our big rock pile. And it's great for the sheep because naturally sheep really like to climb and jump, and rocks are great for that, and it helps them wear down their hooves. So that's why the sheep are in this pen in part. It's great natural habitat for them. And the sheep are also more willing to eat around the rocks, where cattle will pretty much leave anything that's growing within the rocks. Sheep are happy to go through and clean up the grass and the weeds. So we have some other building materials in here as well. And when the lambs are in here especially, they love to climb and jump on it. And speaking of lambs, we are going to go over and take a look at them. They're still in the same pasture that they've been in since the beginning, since we moved them down there. So we're going to move them up, and we're going to swap pastures. So the ewes and lambs are going to come into this one, and the ram, wethers, and horse are going to go into the other one. So down where the ewes and lambs currently are. And on our way down, we can also check out the corn that we have growing. So we're aiming for knee-high by the 4th of July, so we're getting close. And a lot of the corn is getting right up there, but I guess it depends on whose knees we're talking about. I'm quite short, so they'll probably reach my knees. But we can see all the corn out here. So this is expansive green. This is all corn. And we use our corn for silage that we feed our cattle. So it's looking really good. And if we're going by some of it, they're almost at my knees. So if we were to lift up the leaves, definitely knee high. So, and it all depends on the weather we're getting. So it's been a little bit cooler. We haven't had as much rain recently, so the corn will just be growing a little bit more slowly. And then some places will be a little bit taller than others, and it'll just depend on the water table and the water content, as well as the soil quality. So here we have our other sheep, our ewes and lambs. So these lambs were all born in May, and we have 6 ewes, so we don't have a huge flock of sheep. But all the ewes had their lambs within about a week and a half of one another. So it was very quick, and that's a great thing to see. We like to have all of our lambs roughly around the same size. So some of these lambs, you might notice that some still have their long tails and some don't. So we dock our sheep's tails. So you can see with all of the ewes, they have very short tails. And then some of the lambs have very long tails. So sheep are naturally born with long tails, just like horses or cattle. But a lot of people will dock their sheep's tails, and we do that as well. It's quite a common practice in North America. It keeps their wool clean and just makes everything a little bit easier come lambing time, especially where we have much colder climates. Having clean wool is essential, and it just keeps everything a little bit easier to keep. So some of the lambs have already lost their tails, so have already been docked. And the way their tails are docked are, we use the same little rubber bands that we use for castrating the cattle and the lambs as well. So they just get put on their tails, and they slowly just restrict blood flow to the rest of their tail. So it doesn't hurt them very much at all. It's a very slow process. And it's really similar if you've ever seen dogs like Doberman Pinschers or Rottweilers. So those dogs will have long tails naturally as well. They'll be born with long tails, and then they just get docked. So it's that same principle. So you can really see the difference in the size of the lambs. This one little lamb in front of me is actually quite large. She's the biggest in here. The mother only had 1 lamb, so naturally she was going to be bigger since she didn't have to share any space with a twin. And then she gets all the milk, so she just grows rapidly. So you can see she's almost as tall as her mother is right now. And then we have the other lambs that are twins, so they're a little bit smaller, but not by much. But then you look at Rosie, and Rosie's a little bit smaller, and she's smaller for a couple of reasons. Her breed is naturally smaller. They won't grow to be as large as our Suffolk sheep will. She's a hair sheep, so some of those genetics play into the reason why she's a little bit smaller. And then also bottle feeding. They don't get fed as often as they would if they had a mother nearby. And the milk powder, or the milk replacer powder, is formulated to be very similar to sheep's milk, but it's always missing just a little bit of what actual sheep's milk is. So it doesn't have the exact same nutritional value that actual sheep's milk does. And the same goes with cattle and horses as well. Milk replacer is great, but nothing will ever replace actual milk. So this is a really great pen for the sheep. There's lots of grass in here. There are lots of fallen trees, so the sheep are able to get around and feed between everything, and they'll get some of the weeds and keep that under control here. And it really doesn't take that much space to be able to feed a sheep for a summer. They're very economical in the amount of feed that they eat in terms of sustaining their body weight and growth. So if you're ever thinking about wanting to get animals but worried about the amount of space that you have, sheep are really great because they don't take up that much space, or they don't need that much space to be able to be kept. So whereas cattle take a lot more space in terms of just their size as well as how much they eat. So you can see the rest of the corn here in the background. So it's just a continuation of that field that we walked through. Here we have one of our calf sheds, so we use this as the shelter for the sheep. They're called calf sheds because when they're in with the cattle, only the calves are able to access them, since there's this beam across and the cows aren't able to fit underneath that, just the calves are. But when we have the sheep in here, both the ewes and lambs are much below where this beam is, so they can all go in here, so it can protect them from if there are any severe weather storms, or just going out of the sun so they can be in the shade a little bit more. We have their water tub, or their water tank and their tub. Oh, Rosie. She's trying to jump through the fence. So we have the water for them. We also have a salt block for them. So with all of our animals, we give them some additional salt and mineral. A lot of salt and minerals can be found naturally occurring in the ground, but depending on our pasture or where they are, sometimes that salt or those minerals aren't as accessible, or they aren't as there aren't as many. So we give them extra because they need it. Just like people, you need some salt and you need some minerals. It's just like taking vitamins. So we give them salt blocks, and they come in giant salt blocks like this. You can get sheep-sized salt blocks that are usually half this size, but we can use these salt blocks for either the cattle or the sheep. Cattle can have the sheep salt blocks, but the sheep cannot have the cattle salt blocks. So cattle salt blocks have copper in them, and sheep can't have copper. So you have to be really careful about which salt blocks you're going to be giving to your animals, and making sure that the animals that can't have certain kinds of minerals don't get into those salt blocks or those minerals. So when we had the ram in with the horse and then those bulls, we switched out the bull's salt blocks, so they would have had one with copper in it. So we switched it out for one that doesn't. So there are all sorts of things where the animals can share a lot of qualities in terms of what they can eat or where they're able to live, but there are a lot of things that you have to be really careful about when you have animals coexisting. So right now, I think we're almost at the end of today's tour. I wanted to mention that we have a really special tour coming up on Canada Day on July 1st. We are part of a regional Canada Day celebrations that are being hosted by a few municipalities around Edmonton, City of Spruce Grove, Beaumont, Leduc, Devon, Strathcona County. I think I covered them all. So they are hosting a virtual Canada Day celebration. They have activities, they have some entertainment, so check out their Facebook event page, so Regional Canada Day Celebrations, or visit our page and we'll have the link to that. And because it's Canada Day, I wanted to do something a little bit special, and I was trying to think what could we do that's kind of Canadian. So what we're going to do is celebrate the livestock breeds that have originated in Canada. So there aren't a ton, but there are a few, and the few breeds that have originated in Canada are really neat, and they're really unique, and they've been developed and bred to be very hardy because we have such severe weather in terms of hot to cold. So we're going to focus on two of our livestock breeds that have originated in Canada. So we have the Speckle Park cattle and we have the Ridley Bronze turkeys. So those two breeds were developed in Canada and actually both in Saskatchewan, and so that's really fitting because we're quite close to the Saskatchewan border. And we'll chat more about some of the other breeds that are also uniquely Canadian. So be sure to tune in for that. It's going to be at a little bit of a different time, 1 p.m. on July 1st, so we hope we can see you there. We're going to stop quickly at the steers. We'll grab them some grass. There goes the cat. We did have some corn last night, and cattle really enjoy corn, which is obvious because we're growing it for them. But we had a few of the husks, the nice fresh husks from the corn, so I gave that to the steers and they quite enjoyed that. Should have left it for a little bit later. But we have our steers and some of our bulls. They still need to go out to pasture. So for now, just give them some grass as treats. And it's kind of nice to have them around here since it's most of the other cattle are out, so we don't see them as much during the tours anymore. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday and have a great weekend. We will see you on Canada Day. Thanks so much and stay safe. Bye.